If you spend enough time staring at the Pentagon's daily contract announcements, you start to notice a pattern.
Oh, yeah. Mostly it's just, 99% bureaucratic white noise.
Right. Just a wall of serial numbers, incremental funding allocations, and obscure acronyms that would honestly put an insomniac to sleep.
Exactly. And that is entirely by design.
But if you know how to read the matrix, you occasionally spot a quiet, unassuming blip on the radar that is actually hiding something massive. And we got a perfect example of this in the Naval Air Systems command drop from June 9, 2026.
Yeah, that $153.9 million contract modification.
Right. To the untrained eye, it's just another routine disbursement. You just swipe past it.
Which is what most people do. Because in modern defense procurement, the loudest signals, the supersonic flyovers, the dramatic rollouts, the political grandstanding, those are rarely the most important ones.
The aircraft gets the magazine covers, essentially.
Yeah, but the contract structure reveals the actual plumbing of global power. If you want to know what a nation's military strategy will actually look like a decade from now, you don't look at a press release. You look at where they are locking up supply chains today.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are taking the specific, quiet contracts, contract N0001925000070, awarded to Lockheed Martin Aeronautics, and we're decoding it.
Because this seemingly minor piece of paperwork is actually the halo nervous system of global fighter production.
Right, and the cornerstone of international alliance architecture. So let's look at the nuts and bolts. We're talking about an award for long-lead material supporting the production of 11 F-35 Lightning TIEs.
Yes.
And critically, these aren't for the U.S. They are for a foreign military sales customer with a target completion date of December 2030.
Yeah.
So what mechanically is happening here? Because they aren't buying finished jets, right?
No, not at all. They are buying time. When we talk about long-lead materials in fifth-generation aerospace, we are looking at the absolute bedrock of the manufacturing process.
So like the very first steps.
Exactly. These are the components that take years to forge, machine, and certify before they even reach an assembly line.
What kind of components are we talking about?
We're talking about specialized titanium forgings, complex composite structures that require massive, heavily scheduled autoclaves just to cure.
Wow.
Yeah, plus advanced avionics processors and custom electronic warfare modules. You cannot spin up production for these items in a single quarter.
I always think of it like trying to build a hyper-advanced smart house.
Right, you don't wait until the drywall is up to order the tech.
Exactly. You don't wait until moving day to realize you need rare earth sensors for a custom security system that, like, only one facility on Earth manufactures. If you don't buy those specific complex pieces years in advance, the entire construction schedule collapses.
And the industrial base for these specific F-35 components operates on a lead time that stretches 3 to 4 years out.
Which makes sense of the 2030 completion date. But looking at the geography of this contract, the scope of that construction is just staggering. It's not just happening in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, no. Fort Worth is just the final mating and assembly hub. The actual ecosystem activated by this $153 million is a sprawling multi-continent web.
So where else are we talking?
Well, you have radar and sensor work happening in El Segundo, California, and Baltimore.
Okay.
Then you've got electronic warfare suites coming out of Nashua.
Wait, and it's not just the U.S., right? There are international partners involved at this stage, too.
Oh, absolutely. You've got major structural assemblies moving through Wharton in the United Kingdom and Cameri in Italy.
Italy, right.
Yeah, and then Orlando and San Diego are feeding into the logistics and software training elements. Think about the physical logistics of that. You're coordinating a precision-machined wing assembly from Italy to mate perfectly with avionics from California on a factory floor in Texas, down to the millimeter.
That just-in-time global supply chain is notoriously brittle, though. Which brings me to the part of this contract that I think demands some serious pushback.
Okay, let's hear it.
This $153.9 million modification was completely non-competitive. The government didn't put it out for bid, they just handed Lockheed Martin the modification. Now, I understand Lockheed is the prime contractor, but handing a monopoly, a non-competitive modification, especially when the program is already under massive GAO scrutiny for ballooning sustainment costs, I mean, it feels less like strategic necessity and more like getting fleeced.
I get that. But what's fascinating here is that you're analyzing it through a traditional free market lens. And in fifth-generation aerospace, that market simply does not exist.
So the lack of competition isn't a scandal.
No, it's a massive signal. It proves how highly specialized the ecosystem is. It isn't an oversight by the Pentagon. It's a symptom of the barrier to entry. There is no alternative factory down the street with a cleared workforce, specialized stealth coating facilities, and a fully certified multi-level security supply chain just ready to build F-35 parts on a whim.
Right, because the tooling and the certification process are entirely proprietary to the Lightning II ecosystem.
Exactly that. The tooling base, the strict military airworthiness certifications, and the software environment, specifically the Autonomic Logistics Information System, or ALAS, and its transition to Odin, they are fundamentally locked to Lockheed and its Tier 1 suppliers.
So when a foreign country buys an F-35, they're not just buying a plane.
Not at all. When an FMS customer signs on for these 11 jets, they are buying into a closed architecture. They are accepting a 30-year dependency structure.
A dependency for what, exactly?
For depot-level repair, specialized spare parts, and continuous mission data file updates. The jet is really just the entry ticket.
That dependency structure is the ultimate lock-in. And to understand how we arrived at a point where allied nations are actively clamoring to enter this closed ecosystem, we have to look at the sheer scale this program has managed to achieve.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Because if you rewind to the early 2000s, right after Lockheed won the Joint Strike Fighter program, this platform was the poster child for procurement disaster.
Oh, the friction of the initial development cannot be overstated.
They were trying to do too much with one airframe, right?
Exactly. The Pentagon demanded a single aircraft family that could satisfy conventional takeoff for the Air Force, carrier operations for the Navy, and short takeoff and vertical landing for the Marines.
Which is insane from an engineering standpoint.
It was. Trying to engineer a STOVL variant like the F-35B while maintaining commonality with the A and C variants created immense aerodynamic and software hurdles. The cost overruns were legendary. Hairish criticism everywhere.
It was a brutal developmental phase. But looking at the numbers today, the pivot is undeniable. I mean, by 2025, they were delivering 191 jets in a single year.
Which is a massive volume for a stealth fighter.
Right. The global fleet is pushing 1,300 aircraft. They blew past 1 million cumulative flight hours. And in March 2024, they finally crossed milestone C, entering full-rate production.
And that isn't just a bureaucratic checkbox. It means the manufacturing process is stable enough to just essentially print these things.
Right.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that manufacturing stability translates directly into geopolitical mass.
Oh, so?
Well, a technologically brilliant jet that you can only build in batches of a dozen is essentially a boutique capability. It's too precious to risk in a high-attrition conflict.
You'd be too afraid to lose one.
Exactly. But when you cross the scale threshold the F-35 has, the platform becomes the center of gravity for Allied air power. Scale drives down the unit cost of the A model to a point where it outcompetes advanced fourth-generation platforms on the export market.
Making it the default choice for NATO and Pacific allies.
Precisely. A brilliant jet that can't be mass-produced is useless. Producing it across this multinational network turned it into a global standard.
But scale and unit cost on a spreadsheet only matter if the jet survives in contested airspace. Which brings us to the combat validation during Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025.
Yeah, that was a watershed moment.
Because this wasn't just a PR exercise. F-35As were actually conducting SEAD missions.
Right. Suppression of enemy air defenses.
They were ingressing into highly contested environments to dismantle integrated air defense networks so the wider strike package could operate. Which I think clarifies a major public misconception.
Which one?
That the F-35 is built for a Hollywood movie-style dogfight. It's not. It's built more like a flying quarterback.
Yeah.
Its job is to see the field first, fuse the data, and share it with the team to make the whole force deadlier.
That is a great analogy. That operation fundamentally validated the core thesis of the jet. It relies on network survivability.
Right.
It operates more like an airborne server rack, heavily coated in radar-absorbent material.
Right.
It penetrates an air defense bubble without emitting an obvious signature, vacuums up electronic emissions, synthesizes the radar returns, and then distributes those targeting solutions back to older, cheaper platforms or standoff munitions.
It's processing the battle space faster than the adversary's surface-to-air missile operators can even react.
Exactly.
But let's look at the tension here impartially, because both realities are true at the same time. Midnight Hammer proved the capability is unmatched. But for critics, it's still a symbol of cost overruns. The GAO reports didn't just vanish.
No, they certainly didn't.
We are talking about a program with a lifetime cost projecting over $2 trillion. The sustainment costs are eating into operational budgets. The GAO has repeatedly flagged systemic repair backlogs where jets are just sitting on the tarmac because a classified sensor can only be repaired at a handful of specialized depots.
The sustainment tail is the Achilles heel of the program, without question. The F-35 is incredibly thirsty when it comes to maintenance hours per flight hour.
Because of the stealth coatings?
The specialized stealth coatings degrade, yes. The software requires constant patching, and when you look at a contract like this $153.9 million modification for long lead parts, you have to contextualize it against the broader supply chain pressure.
It's just a tiny piece of a massive puzzle.
Right. This is a drop in the bucket compared to the massive Lots 18 and 19 agreement, which covers up to 296 jets. The industrial base is straining to simultaneously build new aircraft, manufacture spare parts for a fleet of 1,300, and execute block upgrades like Technology Refresh 3.
And that strain is exactly why this foreign military sales contract is so revealing.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? If this capability is so crucial and constrained, why is this contract securing 11 jets for another country?
Because FMS is not a direct commercial sale.
The foreign buyer can't just cut a check to Lockheed?
No. The U.S. government acts as the middleman. They control the sensitive technology release, the specific configuration of the export variants, and the export conditions.
So is the U.S. essentially acting as a high-end arms dealer here, or is there a deeper geopolitical chess move happening?
It's absolutely a chess move. FMS is actually alliance engineering.
Alliance engineering, I like that.
Yeah. It is the ultimate diplomatic leverage. A foreign buyer gets access to the U.S. defense relationship, but Washington gets long-term alignment. By reserving a spot in this constrained production queue, a foreign nation is fundamentally aligning its defense architecture with the United States for decades.
Because they'll fly standard U.S. doctrine.
Exactly. Their pilots will train in the U.S. ecosystem. Their cybersecurity and logistics footprint will be tied to the global Alias and Odin network.
Every F-35 sold abroad acts as a strategic bond.
Yes, one that physically prevents an ally from pivoting their defense reliance to a geopolitical competitor.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because a fighter jet isn't like a consumer product where the sticker price is the final cost. The $2 trillion price tag makes sense only when you realize it's a sensor node, electronic warfare system, and data collector all mashed into one.
Right, and that plays heavily into the 2030 target completion date for these 11 jets.
Yeah, because they're essentially buying the 2030 version of interoperability. When these jets roll off the line, they will enter a world of highly networked warfare, where the F-35 acts as an airborne data node connecting ships, drones, and ground forces.
And that network effect is profound. Much like a dominant software platform in the tech world, as more NATO and Pacific allies adopt the F-35, it becomes the standard.
Establishing the baseline for coalition warfare.
Exactly. Standardized tactics, standardized parts, standardized data links. Once you achieve that level of global saturation, stepping outside of that ecosystem means isolating your military from the rest of the alliance. It makes it incredibly difficult to replace.
Which means the real battle of modern air power isn't just signing the biggest contract, it's securing a production slot early.
Yes, via long-lead materials. It is an existential priority for these FMS customers because if a country waits, they don't just face inflation on the sticker price.
They go to the back of the line.
They go to the back of a very constrained supply chain queue, and late buyers will wait much longer. A 5-year delay on receiving advanced fighters completely reshapes a nation's defense planning.
It scrambles pilot training pipelines, base infrastructure investments, all of it.
Therefore, a relatively small $154 million contract today is the bureaucratic mechanism that guarantees a foreign military's operational calendar half a decade from now.
It protects the schedule.
Yes, in an environment where time is the single most valuable and least forgiving resource.
That really reframes how you look at the daily contract announcements. I mean, to summarize the journey of today's deep analysis, a $153.9 million signal in the middle of a $2 trillion program isn't about the money at all.
Not even a little bit.
And it isn't even really about the 11 aircraft. It is about protecting the schedule, securing the supply chain years in advance, and executing geopolitics through manufacturing. Washington is quietly locking foreign defense budgets into American manufacturing infrastructure for the next 30 years.
The actual geopolitics aren't happening at summit tables. They're happening in composite curing ovens and titanium forging facilities.
Which is wild to think about.
It is, but, stepping back to view that interconnected global machine leaves us with a highly uncomfortable strategic vulnerability, one that the 2030 vision hasn't fully solved.
What's that?
Well, we've explored how this entire system relies on an intricate, multi-continent supply chain from Italy to Texas to the UK.
Just-in-time delivery.
Right. But what happens if a major geopolitical conflict completely fractures those international shipping lanes?
Oh, wow.
If the F-35 is essentially the operating system of global allied air power, relying on centralized software depots and highly specialized parts continuously moving across the oceans, can a localized war actually be fought if a single missing screw from halfway across the world grounds the entire digital fleet?
That is the trillion-dollar question right there. You build a perfectly synchronized global machine to deter a war, but you might need a perfectly peaceful globe just to keep the machine running. Something for you to mull over the next time a boring supply chain headline scrolls across your feed. Thank you for joining us for today's deep analysis. We invite you to keep questioning the quiet contracts, the bureaucratic signals, and the hidden systems that are actively hardwiring the future of our world. We'll see you next time.